The Qatar Masters Open started today, and many people are saying that this is the strongest ever Open tournament in the history of the game. And when you have the top three players in the world participating, Carlsen, Kramnik and Giri, then there must be something to that claim. It is incredibly strong. And it's going to be very interesting to see how these elite players manage to adjust to playing in the hurly-burly of an Open tournament where it's very, very important to score as many wins as possible. Of course, they're used to playing in closed tournaments where you can get away with making quite a few draws. Anyway, Carlsen came unstuck in the first round. He drew against Nino Batsiashvili, who plays in the Georgian women's team. He had white but couldn't quite force a win. We had Wei Yi, 16-year-old Chinese player who lost to an 18-year-old from India. I have to say there are a lot of young Indian and Chinese players, and there were quite a few upsets in the first round. You can get all the details at chessbase.com. Anyway, don't want to look at one of the upsets in this first round. I want to look at one of the favourites, Anish Giri, playing with the white pieces against Sunilduth Lyna from India, who's 17 years old. Must be strange for Giri to play against someone that's actually younger than him. And of course, Giri is the man of the moment. He's now up to third in the world rankings, and just came from an excellent tournament at the London Chess Classic. So, and also he played incredibly well in the Qatar Open last year, where he started really well. So he seems capable of adjusting his play. But anyway, let's have a look. He's certainly playing a lot sharper. Instead of going for this G3 line in the English, he's played with E3, and this is a line that was very popular in the late 70s and early 80s, and it leads to rather unusual positions. So, I mean, we can see straight away that Giri is changing his style a little bit according to, the opposition. I should say his opponent is only rated 2494. So Queen F5. Now this looks really bizarre, but actually this move was played by Korchnoi, for example. So it is known. I mean, of course, one of the ideas is to damage Black's pawns here, but also sometimes you can get a lightning attack against Black's king with these moves. So Black has to play D6 here. So the queen is attacked, but now White manages to just compromise Black's pawn structure on the king's side. Black's best chance here is to try to use his lead in development. Here the most usual move is Queen H5, and then it's been shown in several games that Black actually manages to generate enough play in the centre. Giri, after a little thought, played the queen back to C2. A little bit unusual, but has been also seen before. And after E4, the knight came back to G1. Now this looks comical because White is kind of undeveloping, bringing his pieces back to square one. But he has damaged Black's king side, and that is a price worth paying for slightly slow development. So Black now played correctly. He has to try to use his lead in development and open up the position. Bishop came back, and now that's really where the bishop belongs, to try to protect the king. And now knight e2 from Giri. Previously bishop c4 had been seen, but this is a mistake, because after this then that's irritating. However White protects that pawn is a compromise. So much better to play knight e2 as Giri played. And this knight has options. It might come to g3, it might hit the queen from f4, might come to c3, it might not move at all. White may just play b4. Bishop f5 played, and now b4. So of course White intends to bring the bishop to the long diagonal. So we're basically playing a Sicilian in reversed, and it would be a reasonably standard kind of position, except for the fact that black has these doubled pawns. Now I think the best move for black is to play the knight into the middle of the board. And after this, you can still protect the e-pawn. We'll see why that's important in a second, so you can see everything is under control here. And it's very useful for black to have the option to be able to throw that knight in on d3, force an exchange, and generate some play on this diagonal. But instead black played a5, and after knight c3 and b5, well, the knight did come to e5, but I mean, knight e7 might be best, but after knight e5, the difference is that Giri managed to take off this pawn on e4. Now, this is a very brave move indeed, because you can see that Giri is self-pinning, and also it opens up the e-file, and that is potentially extremely risky. So let's see how black managed to exploit this pin. First of all, knight d7, good move. So white has to protect this knight with either d3 or f3. And both moves are possible, but Giri went for d3. And now black took and played knight c5. Now that's a good move, because instead of knight c5, if black were just to recapture this pawn, then that's precisely what Giri wants. He has now a technical position. He has the better pawn structure, and he also has two bishops. Technical advantage, he's in his element. So black played correctly here, knight c5, and so he may still capture on e4 with the queen. He might play knight takes, and sometimes he might leap into b3. So this is a very good idea. And black building up, still keeping his options open. So for example, if this bishop comes to c4, then it could be very strong to take on e4, and there are going to be hits to this bishop, and then the knight can decide where it wants to leap into. Giri could protect this e-pawn at this moment, but I can understand why he didn't want to do that. It leaves that pawn a bit weaker, and black has several options here. I mean, one, he might just leap in with the knight, and already, this looks pretty scary. Maybe just a4, and bishop c5 may be coming here. This is a really tricky position for white to play, not easy. So Giri played rook c1, and I think he wants to prepare this and also put some pressure on the c-file. So black played knight e4. Still quite a scary position. White has to develop, and you can see that black is lined up beautifully. Bishop d3, this needed precise calculation before playing this move. And now black sees the chance. If black leaves this, then of course white is going to be able to trade, take on f6, maybe take here. So it's crunch time. We've reached crisis point in the game. Knight takes f2. Scary move, but Giri, looking at his clock times, clearly had anticipated this. Well, if this is taken, then of course this is not so clever for white. Or indeed, king takes and queen takes and rook takes d3. But Giri played bishop takes h7 check. The king stepped out of check. And now he simply castled. There you go. It is legal. The king does not cross through the path of black's knight. But a very easy move to miss. And here black went wrong. I mean, it's a fantastically complicated position, but he should play knight g4 here, and this is just a hugely messy position, and then white may play rook f3 or something like that. But instead, black played knight d3, and Giri seized his chance. I mean, he is a brilliant calculator. Whoops, I beg your pardon. Let's flash forward. He played black played knight d3, and as I said, Giri seized his chance. He is a brilliant calculator. He played bishop takes d3, and after queen takes e3 check, rook takes, well, if I should say if queen takes, then white can simply check on f6 and take the rook on d8, and after rook takes d3, rook f6. So this is nice. Of course, there is no back rank mate. You can simply take this, and then the rook comes back, and that's check. That's rather important. So black's, whoops, I beg your pardon. So after rook takes f6, that was the last move, black stepped away from the check, from the long diagonal, I should say. And now rook f1 just threatened to crash through on the f file, and that also solves the back rank problem, so there's no danger that white is going to fall into this. Now, I mean, black is actually lost here. He tried queen e2, but queen c4 was a killer move. Again, this is brilliantly calculated by Giri. If queen takes bishop, then queen f7, that leads to mate pretty quickly. Black tried rook d7, and now a great winning move, rook g6 check, and black resigned. It would have been nice to see the finish, well, but let me show you what might have occurred. After king h7, this is really nice. Queen h4, the king takes the rook, rook f6 check, and now it's forced mate. This is beautiful geometry. Queen h8, and it's mate in the corner. There we go. So Giri's strategy of damaging black's kingside pawns paid off in the end. So, well, maybe not his most challenging game he's going to have in this tournament, but still very effective. So it's going to be a 9-round tournament, and well, all to play for. Join me for my daily reports.